In my early 20s, I really struggled socially. It felt like everybody else was getting opportunities that I couldn't access. Every interaction that I had seemed to only enforce the fact that I was a loser. So any time that I'd meet a girl that I liked, I was getting rejected. Girls didn't like me, people didn't respect me, and not many people wanted to hang around. Things just didn't go well for me. I saw other people going on dates, meeting girls. I struggled with my friendships, and I felt like I'd missed out a lot on life. I saw that they had money, status, good jobs, education, and then I looked at myself and I didn't have any of that. So it's no wonder that I was getting left behind. I managed to get myself a girlfriend, and quite quickly that relationship failed, and it threw me straight back into that chaos. I did what any desperate guy would have done, and I turned to self-improvement. It promised success with women, social skills, money, careers. I wanted all of this stuff because I felt like I was a loser, and it was the only way that I could get the stuff that I wanted. And here's the crazy thing, I actually got it. I educated myself, I opened up career opportunities that I never thought would be possible from someone of my background. I got massive success with women, I improved my social skills. I managed to turn everything around. I managed to completely transform my life from quiet desperation into one which is pretty incredible. But here's the funny thing, the moment that I got the things that I thought I wanted, they suddenly stopped being the things that I wanted. So I was asking myself, what the fuck's going on? And it turns out I was making the same mistake that a lot of you guys will be making in your own lives. Turns out I was chasing the wrong thing the entire time. It seemed like that other people had been given something that I was excluded from. They were able to connect and build relationships with people easily. That enabled them to go out and have these really amazing and enriching experiences. I finally thought that after being rejected my whole life, struggling, that finally that game was over. So when that relationship failed, that threw me into chaos. But it was one of the best things that could ever have happened to me because it gave me enough pain for me to then go out and find the answers. I struggled a lot with my mental health. I got given a book. This was the first time I'd ever been given something that would help me improve myself or change my circumstances. I read this book and it taught me how to control my anxiety. It taught me about cognitive behavioral psychology. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was able to control my mind and my reality. I became absolutely obsessed with anything that I could get that would give me more power and more control over my life and my circumstances. I studied persuasion, psychology, philosophy, social skills, dating. I've read, at this point, hundreds of books, listened to hundreds of hours of content. I became obsessed. Life had completely 180'd. I had the kind of life that people would have envied. Then something really interesting happened. After I started to get these things, I started to learn that they weren't the things that I really wanted. It wasn't very important to me, and I lost the motivation to engage in most of these things. What I actually wanted was to be recognized and respected and to feel a sense of control over my own life so that I could actualize the things that I wanted. What I really needed was self-esteem, and I was trying to get self-esteem through external validation and trying to get the world to prove to me that I was good enough. And the things that made me feel good enough were women finding me attractive, people wanting to be my friends, and the sort of jobs I could get. What I was doing is I was just trying to fill that hole that was within myself. The path of excess leads to wisdom. The pain of wanting is real, and the grass always looks greener on the other side. When you don't have things or you've never had them, you will want them and you take them seriously. Some people just don't believe it's possible to get these things and they choose an easier route and they rationalize it. However, I think that there's a lot of value for people who do go down this route. They get the excess and they learn the lessons that they need to learn through wisdom and direct experience. The problem with chasing these things is that your sense of peace, your self-esteem is always going to be dependent on external validation. Just think of the example of an attractive woman who has been overly validated her whole life. What happens as this woman starts to age? Her sense of self becomes challenged. She's no longer as attractive. She's no longer getting the validation that she was used to. This woman can have a horrible void appear where her sense of self was dependent on other people and she no longer knows who she is. She no longer feels valuable in herself. These substitutes, status, money, physique, appearance, social validation, all of these things are false pillars of self-esteem. Their foundations are inherently fragile, and that if you depend on these things to give you a sense of self, a sense of worth, you are always going to be vulnerable to somebody taking that away from you. Most of life's problems come from a lack of self-esteem. The things that you do, the things that you need, are often to make yourself feel good enough. It's the underconfidence, second-guessing yourself, always needing people's validation. It all comes from this deep feeling of inadequacy. It's only through developing a solid self-esteem that these things no longer continue to be problems. You need self-esteem to be able to achieve the things that you want. I couldn't have achieved any of my goals if it wasn't for developing a high sense of self-esteem. But then once you get that, you might find that the things that you wanted are no longer the things that you actually want. When you get self-esteem, you become more content and sure of yourself. You no longer feel the need for this external validation, and you're no longer as motivated through pain, through needing. You have a feeling of contentment, that you feel like you're good enough to tackle life's problems. You're good enough as you are in your own personality and character, that you don't need to go out and get it proven. You lose respect for these superficial values because they are no longer where you get your sense of self or purpose from. You can walk into uncertain situations without your sense of self collapsing, and you can fail at things without it destroying you. You can be rejected, and it doesn't mean that you're worthless. And the most important thing is it gives you agency and control over your own life. You're able to actualize and go for the goals that you want without any fear that you're not good enough. You're capable of achieving the things that you want to achieve. Now, I've got massive respect for anybody out there becoming better versions of themselves. But the example here shows that a lot of people are drawn to this because they feel such an inadequate sense of self. I've got a good friend who used to be like this, and to compensate, he became absolutely massive. The problem is that people do this because they believe that these are the things that are going to give them validation. So this guy never felt good enough. He suddenly becomes big, and now he's impressed all the guys and he thinks all the girls are going to like him. But what happens is, in real life, not many people actually care. They're not looking at you. They're not thinking about you. You're not important enough in their lives. So they get muscular, they get massive, and that becomes their personality. They believe that they're valuable now. They've got a bit of an ego. They feel great. But then the moment somebody doesn't validate them or doesn't give them the respect that they believe they're due, if a woman rejects them, tells them that they don't like guys with big muscles, you can consistently see these guys have an absolute meltdown because they've done all that work to make themselves valuable. If you don't see that, it threatens their sense of self. This is a superficial value system, a superficial sense of self-esteem that is on rotten foundations. It will crumble. All of my work comes from Nathaniel Branden, The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem. I really recommend this book, and I'm going to share what the 6 pillars are here. Number 1, living consciously. Most people are sleepwalking through life. Be aware of yourself, your thoughts, your behaviors, and your actions. Learn to see yourself, be aware of yourself. Number 2, the practice of self-acceptance. A lot of people struggle with shame, guilt. You need to be able to accept yourself, who you are, your flaws and all. Don't expect to be a perfect person. The more that you can accept that you're not perfect and that you're just human, the much easier time you're going to have. Number 3, personal responsibility. Every single thing in your life is your responsibility. It doesn't matter if you had the worst childhood. It doesn't matter about your job. It doesn't matter if somebody's annoyed you. The sooner you take radical responsibility for all of your circumstances in life, the sooner you're going to be able to actually take action and fix these things. You are in control. Doesn't matter about your childhood, your past, what circumstances you're in. You need to be responsible for your own life. Number 4, self-assertiveness. This is being willing to put yourself first, assert yourself. It's not an aggressive thing. It's just being able to look after yourself. Realize that you are numero uno and that you are your own biggest responsibility. So that means not shrinking, not overly apologizing for who you are and what you do. Number 5, living with purpose. Have a goal and move towards it. There's nothing that makes life as fulfilling as having a strong sense of purpose and having all of your life aligned towards achieving that goal. And number 6 is living with personal integrity. That means your behaviors and actions are aligned with your values and your beliefs. If you have a high sense of integrity, you will always trust yourself no matter what. These 6 pillars of values, they are a roadmap for how to live. It's how you build solid self-esteem. And if you live in accordance with these values, you're always going to have that inner confidence that radiates outward. And here's what all 6 have in common. They're all about the relationship that you have with yourself. They're all things that come from within you. There's no way that that can ever be taken away from you. Your confidence and your competence are closely linked to your level of self-esteem. Self-esteem is the thing that lets you feel confident, navigating life's problems, all the things that are going to be thrown in your way. So the route to building confidence is through building competence. And building competence requires education and practice. The steps look like this. Knowledge becomes applied knowledge. Applied knowledge becomes skill, and skill leads to confidence. You learn something, you apply what you've learned, you repeat the step, and over time you learn skills. Skills are the things that will make you feel competent and confident at what you're doing. Competent because you know that you can perform the action through repetition of practice, and because you know that you're able to deal with the situations that you're in. You can do this in any area and it can transform your life. A few people fall into one of three traps. You have the hacks. These are people who are trying to avoid the effort. It takes effort to apply knowledge and to develop skills. So there are people who don't want to do that and they will look for every single hack and trick out there. There are countless sources for getting book summaries where they'll reduce 8 hours of information into a 5-minute bite. Problem is that unless you put in the effort, you're not going to get the reward. Stop looking for hacks and tricks and actually just do the work. The knowledge trap. I fell into this for years, and these are guys who, rather than going into the action stage because they're afraid of failure, they will procrastinate by reading, researching, getting more knowledge because they believe that with more knowledge, they're going to be more confident to take action. The problem with this is that most of the learning comes from applying the knowledge. So yeah, you need a preliminary bit of knowledge, but then you need to take that and you'll learn so much more through the practice. I've learned this because I spent years reading and then gone to try it and then figured out that it's nothing like what I read. You have to go out in the world and practice. There is no avoiding it. And then there is the fear of failure. The reason we avoid things, we find comfort, we procrastinate, we just don't want to do stuff is because we're actually managing our discomfort. It is uncomfortable to learn things and fail them. It's uncomfortable to put effort in and to feel that sense of shame when we're not good enough or we fail. You need to fall in love with fear. This is the number one most important thing I could ever express. Learn to get rejected, learn to fail, learn to fall on your ass, embarrass yourself. This is the fastest way that you can apply the knowledge, learn it, get the skills, and then move on to competence, become a master. It is an essential part of the process. So every time you fail and survive, you learn that you can bounce back. You learn the resilience that you need to then move on and actually achieve things. You can't build the evidence that you can handle discomfort, and you don't put yourself out there enough to get the success that you need. If you're going to do anything worth doing in life, you are going to fail a lot, and you need to get used to that. I teach people high status behaviors. Having high and low status understanding helps you navigate and calibrate yourself to move into areas where you can be most effective. High self-esteem people attract other high self-esteem people. High self-esteem people are usually raised in a way that supports their growth, nurtures them in a way that they're able to actualize things in the world. They are healthy, well-adjusted individuals. A lot of people who lack self-esteem for whatever reason, it might not be their fault, but they've had difficult lives or they've had problems that mean that they're maladjusted. They're not healthy individuals. Like attracts like. High self-esteem people who give a lot of value aren't going to hang around with people who take value. On the other way around, low self-esteem people usually attract other low self-esteem people. There is no bigger indicator of status than high self-esteem. Ignore the superficial stuff, how good you look, have you got a nice car. High self-esteem is the number one indicator. The higher your self-esteem, the better you're going to interact with other healthy, well-adjusted individuals who are also more likely to be achieving and going out there and smashing their goals in the world. This is the difference between a glass that's already full and a glass that's empty. The glass that's full is able to give more. A glass that is empty is always trying to get filled. I spent years chasing self-esteem. I felt terrible about myself, and I'm glad that I went through the journey because it taught me what I needed to know. I'm a well-adjusted person now. I'm very healthy. I've got things sorted. I needed to learn and have the pain and experience to get the things and realize that they weren't what I wanted. If I could go back and teach myself anything, 8 years ago, I would have told myself that this was probably one of the most important things that I could have developed before doing anything else. It should have been the foundation of all of my growth, not the consequence of it. Because when you've got self-esteem, you achieve things for the right reason. You're not doing them to fill a void or a gap or because you don't feel like you're good enough. You're doing things and you're achieving things because they're aligning with your authentic self. The things that you'd actually want to achieve if you were a well-adjusted, healthy individual, not because you're chasing some kind of trauma. You're doing the things that you're doing because you want to grow and they align with who you are. And the funny thing is when you don't achieve your goals, I'm not always hitting the mark, your whole sense of self doesn't crumble because of it. You realize that it's all a growth and it's all a progress, and you know that it's part of the journey. It doesn't disturb your innate peace. You don't need that constant validation because that's the ultimate goal. It's freedom. It's freedom from needing other people to tell you that you're enough. Freedom from basing your self-worth on transient things that can be taken away from you. It's freedom to fail, to try, and to have integrity, knowing that you've always got yourself, regardless if anybody else is watching. These 6 pillars aren't a fast fix. It's not the easy path, but these are the things that are going to give you that rock solid base, that confidence in yourself that you can navigate the world and its problems. So start there, build competence, chase your goals, absolutely. But build self-esteem because everything else comes from those solid foundations. 97% of people don't like, comment, subscribe, or engage in any kind of way. If I've helped you, offered value, or you've enjoyed this, please help me out by leaving some kind of comment, suggestion, like, subscribe, whatever. It massively helps me and I'll really appreciate it. And if you want more information, reach out to me below. Catch you in the next one.